Hey, this is Joe, Gray Bench Electronics. Welcome back to the pedal teardown series where I take apart new and interesting pedals and show you what's going on inside. Today we have the Ibanez Echomachine EM5. All right, we've got the Ibanez Echomachine EM5. This is one of their sound tank series, named as such because they sort of look like a tank. Although they are not particularly strong, ironically, they're an all plastic enclosure. And they do have a metal backplate with a rubberized adhesive pad. This one has its serial sticker. It also has some adhesive left over from Velcro from a previous owner. These have been getting pretty pricey. I've seen them go for like 300-ish bucks. I was able to find this one for a little cheaper. The cost of this pedal is going up, and that is partially because it was featured by a certain sound tech person, and also because they're not made anymore and the chips that are used in these pedals are becoming more and more scarce. As far as externals here, we have the Ibanez sound tank style treadle here. It's although it's plastic pedal just like the Behringer Super Fuzz we looked at last week, it's definitely a little more premium feeling. The treadle is a little smoother. It's not as abrasive as a sound. It just feels like a smoother mechanical function there. This outer clip here is it's a battery door. You can pull that off and that's where your 9-volt battery goes. The knobs here, they are a press-on type knob. Just grab the knob and pull it off. There's a little flange piece inside there, and that just pushes on to a D-shape shaft potentiometer down underneath. There are markings here for out, in, and DC. These are molded into the enclosure, and then the control names are here on this little sticker: Echo, Repeat, and Speed. One nice feature that was a little bit ahead of its time, you might say, is top-mounted jacks. Input and output jacks and DC jack are all top-mounted, all PCB mount jacks. That is it for the externals. Let's go ahead and crack open the pedal. All right, so here are the inner bits from the Ibanez Echomachine. So as far as grounding, it is a plastic enclosure, but it does have a metal backplate, and so you want to have some way to connect the ground on the PCB to the metal backplate, at least to get the shielding from this piece. And the way Ibanez has achieved that here is with this little sort of spring piece of metal that gets screwed into the board like that, and that sits over one of the enclosure screws. And then this metal piece will touch the back panel here and make contact there. It'll also probably it's definitely touching this screw here, which then touches the board. This plate may also touch the metal screw, which is then touching the metal plate here. So you have sort of redundant contact with the back plate here. Just be careful because this is a very thin piece of metal, and if you bend it, it might not make good contact. Here is the PCB for the Echomachine. The main working piece here is this M65A31 Echo chip. This is a dedicated Echo IC that was designed for use in audio applications. So it can do, I think it can actually do stereo echo effects. This is a mono effect pedal, only one input and output. And these chips were made by Panasonic, but then Panasonic sold their IC division to a different company whose name I can't remember. And they were making them somewhat recently, like within the past decade or so, but I don't know if they're still making them. After COVID, it may be pretty low priority to make sort of dedicated Echo ICs like that. On the board here, we also have some other ICs. So this one down here says C4570. That I see is the same thing, C4570. And this one down here is a 74HCU04N. All our components are through hole here, being from a pedal from the 90s. Still going to be through hole, at least for Ibanez audio applications. We have little electrolytics. Looks like these are actually 10-volt electrolytics, so definitely don't put more than 9 volts into the pedal. These are film caps, these silver ones here. Ceramics, of course. Right here is our tiny little bypassing switch. You can see it's just got that tiny little paddle for the bypassing effect. I'm not super fond of that. That looks very easy to break. There's a little hook here, which appears to be like a test point, something where you could clip in a lead to an oscilloscope. probably checking for clock speed or just checking the delay time, different tests they would perform on this pedal before they ship it out, just for quality assurance. The potentiometers here actually have, it's hard to see, but there is the Panasonic M symbol. That's the M symbol for Panasonic, so actually Panasonic branded potentiometers. These ones are much lighter than the Behringer pedal we looked at last week, but they're not loose, you know, they'll still hold a setting. Quarter-inch jacks, like we saw before, are PCB mounted. Don't see any branding on those. DC jack, also PCB mounted. Electrolytes all appear to be Taicon brand, that's Taicon. Actually, these blue ones are labeled Forever. Through-hole transistors here. This is a 5-volt regulator there for the Echo IC most likely. 2SC1815 BJT, a bunch of those all around. 1/8 watt carbon film resistors, totally fine in terms of power handling for a guitar pedal like this. We've got little trim pots here. They'll be able to manipulate those at the factory, setting it for specific parameters so the delays are consistent across a production line. And it's a one-sided PCB, so all the traces are floating back here. There is a sort of an attempt at a ground plane, although it doesn't extend to any of the audio stuff here, so it's not doing that much. So one of the reasons I wanted to get this pedal on the channel is because a few weeks ago I built a DIY version of the same circuit. So that's what I have on the right here. Just comparing, because I thought it'd be interesting to look at. We have the same Echo chip. This is one of the new manufactured ones by that company that bought up the IC division from the original manufacturer. Is it Panasonic? It might be Mitsubishi, because that symbol, I get those confused. Whatever the brand it is, this is the new manufacturer. And Small Bear still has these. They're a bit expensive. I think they're like $8, but they are still available for the time being. And then this one has LM833s, which is probably an equivalent to whatever these 4570 ICs are here. Still got the same 3 trim pots. I believe this circuit is a like for like. This is the Ion Elysium, if you're interested in building one of the Echo machines. And I thought it'd be interesting if we put this pedal back together and we'll do a listening test and see how well the DIY version compares to the real thing. All right, got both pedals wired up here. We have the Ibanez Echomachine and the clone of that pedal. This is the Ion Effects Elysium PCB. They're both wired into the switching pedal, which is sort of off on the corner here. You can't see it. It's just there to make sure that when you're listening to either pedal, it's just guitar to pedal to amp. You don't have the buffer of the other pedal in the chain. As far as guitar, it's a Strat on the bridge pickup. The amplifier is a sort of modded Bassman style amp. The microphone is an SM57, sort of off axis, pointed at the cone. And my picks are medium, if you care. Anyway, here is the clean sound. All right, and we'll turn both pedals on. All right, so this is the Ibanez you're hearing right now. Now we'll switch to the clone. All right, so you can hear there's a difference in the delay time. That could just be different tolerances of potentiometer. So we can pull down the delay time on the clone a bit. So now they're about the same. So now I'm just trying to get them to sound the same. Feedback's about the same. Yeah, about the same on the feedback, so those knobs are fairly consistent. Level seems to be about the same as well. So very similar. Let's crank up the feedback. So we'll go to about 3 o'clock on both. So this is the Ibanez. All right, we'll crank the feedback on both. So you can hear there, the clone is willing to go into oscillation. The Ibanez, not so much. Even with the repeats cranked to full, it's not oscillating. Switch over to the clone. No problem oscillating there. So that could be one of the trimmers inside, could affect that. And so you may be able to set the Ibanez so they will oscillate. But assuming these are the stock settings of the Ibanez and someone hasn't messed with it before I got to it, it's not set to oscillate on its own. Let's slow the delay times down a bit. I keep forgetting which one I'm on because they sound so similar. So yeah, I hope this is a good demonstration that if you take the same components with the same values and you hook them up the same way, you're going to get the same sound out. These pedals were made 30 years apart. They are made with different manufacturers' components. Obviously the enclosure is different, but the fact of the matter is the components are at least pretty much the same value. There's going to be tolerances, but they're pretty close. There's the same IC in there. There's actually different amplifier ICs, but it still sounds basically identical. Maybe with the best headphones on the market, you could sit down, you could really listen and really repeatedly be able to tell a difference. But if you're telling me you'll be able to tell a difference on like a recording or on like in a live show, or if you're listening back to like in your car, no shot. These are the same. It's the same pedal. It sounds the same. It's the same pedal. Okay, that was a teardown of the Ibanez Echomachine EM5. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate you hitting the like button and subscribing and hitting the notification bell if you want to know when I make a new video. If you have any questions or recommendations for a pedal you want to see on a future teardown episode, let me know in the comments. I am Joe from Graybench Electronics. Thanks for watching.